Cool.
Yeah.
All right, man. So how was what'd you do this evening?
Where did it go? I don't know. I don't know what I just
I
experienced.
was gonna say I honestly don't know what that just was, but I think we were doing the same thing. I mean, I saw a couple people on a debate stage. I don't know if you'd call it a debate, but I definitely saw a couple people debating, if you want to call it that.
I saw two old men yelling at each other.
Yeah, mainly Trump, though. To be honest with you, I feel like because Trump is quicker on his feet, he's able to effectively, or he's able to perform the act of like interrupting much more consistently and long as he did, as opposed to Biden, who just isn't going to be able to do that, nor do I think he tries to do that as much. So it was very, I saw a poll actually right before we started about, so it asked, how did the debate make you feel? Or what did you feel about the debate? And like 70% of people polled were like, I feel annoyed because of how
Yeah,
it was, and I totally relate to that.
I would agree with that assessment. I think Biden did as well as he
Yeah,
could have. I don't think he had any major issue. Like I can't point to like a mistake he made really.
there was one moment that I'm sure we'll get clips that I even laughed at when he's like number one and he goes into it, and then he goes number two, and then he skips number two and he goes number three, and Trump's like, no, you were on number two, as like a side comment. It was pretty funny. But I think honestly that was like the worst moment of the debate for Biden, and no one actually cares about that kind of stuff. It's just funny, but it's not going to bring out any new voters or any crazy things like
No.
that. So I would agree. I don't think Biden really had any major areas that he easily could have like had to put his foot in his mouth about based on his past performances. So I think it was pretty solid.
Yeah, he did. I mean, I think early on it was like when Trump was arguing with Chris Wallace, I was like, this is perfect for Biden.
Oh yeah.
Like he doesn't have to
What were
say
they arguing
anything.
about? What was the
It
I can't
just
remember.
Trump kept, and you could tell Chris Wallace was getting frustrated,
Yeah.
and Trump just kept interrupting. And Biden was like, he was kind of playing into it, but he kind of let it go, which I think was a really smart strategy to let just
Yeah.
Trump kind of implode was
Yeah.
his best bet. And I think
Man.
I don't know. I tried to I was trying to take a
Neutral.
objective approach to
Yeah.
it, but I really don't think Biden did terribly at all. You know?
No, I know this is what's kind of hard is you always have to try to account for your own bias. And I'm like, well, what
Yeah,
angles are Trump and his team or his supporters going to work based on this? What angles are Biden and his team? What was the expectations going into this? And like try to filter through it in a neutral sense. And it's not that hard for me in the sense because I don't like Biden a lot of who what his political career has been. I just don't stand for a lot of it. So like I'm not even quick to defend him necessarily, but I think the debate itself, to me personally, was much better for Biden as in terms of losing or gaining voters than it was for Trump overall. I can't really see how Trump would have gained. There are some really crazy moments in this debate, to be quite honest with you. If you take away all the stupid interrupting, and I feel
yeah,
like it's going to be more of a net negative for Trump than I do for Biden.
yeah. Because Trump was interrupting. He had that thing about like Biden's been in office for 47 years. He hit
Yeah,
that a couple times.
yeah,
Biden said a couple little things here and there, but he let Trump argue with Chris Wallace, which I think was just kind of like that's nice.
yeah.
Like, and
I already
he
have a
didn't
lot of
look.
people on my Facebook criticizing Chris Wallace, like Trump supporters. They're already criticizing Chris Wallace, and I'm like, for what? Like, this is what's so freaking annoying to me. Is it's like take 1 second, stop the worshiping of Trump and defending of
Yeah,
Trump and kissing his ass. Just think for one moment. What is a moderator's job? And did Chris Wallace do that job? A moderator's job is to make sure that he holds the candidates to the terms that they themselves agreed to. And as soon as they step
yeah,
out of that consistently and overly, he puts them in their place. That's what Chris Wallace did. And so I can already see how so many people are going to try to make this, well, it was 2v1. Well, it was rigged. Well, Chris Wallace this, Chris Wallace that. Chris Wallace is one of the most like professional journalists there is in the industry.
conservative.
And he's conservative. It's just
Yeah,
this shows you the lengths, and I'll end on this. This shows you the lengths that people will go to defend Trump from any amount of vulnerability, or perceived vulnerability, by just trying to shift blame in any direction they can, whether through humor, sarcasm, or claiming it's rigged. It's ridiculous.
I know. I would agree with that. And I think like Trump like came out and like I guess it lasted maybe 10 minutes before he was insulting Biden. He
Yeah.
really tried to hammer the Hunter Biden thing
Yeah, he
later.
went in hard. I don't think that
He
lands as
did.
well when you
I
start
don't
going.
think
What do you think? I don't know.
I don't think it landed either. And then I don't know if it was what Trump was saying or Biden's interpretation, but it got a little weird there. And I think Biden was interpreting it as talk about his son Bo that died from brain cancer. And so you
Yeah,
could kind of see like Biden got like really sensitive to that.
yeah.
And I don't think that's what Trump was going for.
No,
But
it's I don't know if this will affect Trump's base because quite honestly, I don't know
well, what
what
could?
would. Yeah, I really don't
Yeah.
know what could. But as a person seeing a moment where Biden is clearly having an emotional, and you could say it's rigged, whatever. I don't really care, but he's
Yeah.
clearly he lost his son. His son was in the war. He's having a moment where he's bringing him into the equation, and then Trump brushes him off like, "Well, I don't know who Bo is, but I know Hunter is this,
Yeah.
this, and that." It just comes across so like, come on, like there's nothing to gain politically from being that nonchalant about the guy you're running against death of his son when Trump obviously knows who his son is. So it's not that he's honest when he's saying he doesn't know who he is. He just brushed him aside because he doesn't care. And so I think that moment, I don't think it will hit because again, I don't know what would hit, but that was a very like depressing moment in the debate from my perspective.
Yeah. And I think it was Trump's version of trying to be empathetic, which is disappointing because he was trying to like I don't even think he was trying to brush it off. I think he was trying to say, no, I'm not, I wouldn't disparage Biden, but
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Trump's
That's
way of
the
being
extent
empathetic,
of his empathy. That's a great point. That might be true, actually. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
which is disappointing for the president of the United States.
Very much
I
so.
also, shifting gears, Biden hit a meme. What did he say? Shut up, man. Would you just shut up, man?
Yeah,
Very
dude,
early.
he said a lot. Wait, is that a meme you're saying?
I've seen it on Twitter. It's a meme.
Really? Oh, wow. I think his team, Biden's team, I think prepped him in so many very specific ways that was very good. I can't think off the top of my head, but there was yeah, like Trump when he's attacking Hunter, Biden went, well, he wants to attack my family. I could attack his family, but really we need to be talking about your family. You could tell
Yes,
that was a planned response to when they knew Trump would go in
because
on
they
that.
knew Trump would bring that out.
Exactly, and I think there was numerous occasions, and I didn't realize that was a meme, so I wonder if that was also a planned occasion. But I think a lot of those landed very well.
Yeah, I think if you run through like the ways this debate could have turned out, it went well for Biden.
Yes.
They did yell at each other a lot, but you could
Yeah.
tell like I said earlier, Chris Wallace was getting super frustrated, and Biden was interrupting too, but
Oh, it
Trump
got
was
really
like,
bad with both of them for like 20 minutes there. I mean, Biden was interrupting, then Trump would interrupt, then Biden would interrupt. I was like, this is so painful to watch right now.
I know. And so at the end, I didn't listen to too much of the post debate
Yeah, I didn't either.
analysis, but
Yeah.
At the very end, Wolf Blitzer was like, right when it ended, he said, "Well, this might be the last debate we see."
I was wondering that. Do you think Trump will come back for another debate? Because to me personally, I think Trump knows he didn't do as good as he needs to do. And so I don't see him as having gained any ground there. I mean, his biggest angles he tries to hit Biden on. Biden's like, that's just not true. I do believe in law and order. I
Yeah,
do want to increase funding to the police. What are you talking about? And they just didn't land. They really did not land at all. And so I wonder if Trump will either adjust for the second debate and prepare more, or if he'll just call them all off and make some excuse. Because do you remember? I forgot about this, but he actually didn't go to one of the debates when he was running for the presidential election when in the
yeah.
Republican.
The Republican nomination.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think he actually might just pull out of debates altogether?
So it's weird because I feel like if there's no debates and it's just Trump versus Biden and it's more so a referendum on Trump, then it's
Yeah,
an easy choice.
yeah.
But if
I'd
you're going
agree.
to debate and Biden's not going to make gaffes and he's just kind of neutral, then you're
Yeah,
losing that too.
exactly. I mean, think of two more debates like this. I don't see how that's good for Trump. I mean, maybe like just to be upfront, I hate a lot about Trump. I hate a lot about his character. I hate how, I mean, so much, a laundry list of items. So I could be biased,
Yes.
but I just don't see how this was or not, I could be, I know I'm biased, but I don't see how this was a political win from Trump's perspective in terms of garnering more votes that were maybe undecided or, whatever group that may be at this point. I don't see how he gets more people from his performance tonight.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, what are we doing this for? Trump's base, again, we already established he can do whatever he wants. Biden's base, same deal. Like, you're
Yeah.
voting for him.
Yeah.
I always struggle. I'm like, who is undecided at this point?
I
But
don't know.
there
There
are
are people
undecided
though.
people,
There
and
are.
that's what
Yeah.
this is for. And I just don't know how Trump won many of the majority. I don't know if there's undecided voters. If there's 100,000 undecided voters, for example, I don't know how you say Trump won 50,000 of those. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, my take on it is if you're undecided at this point, it probably means you lean towards Trump, in my
I
opinion,
would
because that
agree.
means Trump hasn't done anything to lost your vote at this point,
You're
which
trying to
kind of means,
justify it.
yeah. And so you're trying to look for ways to justify it. And so to me, the most likely case scenario for this debate, at just first impression, is those undecided people that might lean Trump are now just like, I'm not voting at all. This is just annoying. This is frustrating. I'm not going to cast my vote at all, which, in my opinion, is a loss for Trump more than it is for Biden in a lot of ways. But I don't know. That's my first impression, is that the annoyance of the interrupting and the just the pettiness and I mean, he is such a little baby, man. When it comes, like, when Biden made the comment about, like, we need to be smarter, we need to be faster, we need to do this, all this. He was like, wait, did you just say the word smart? Wow. And he gets like visibly frustrated that his smartness was being questioned on a debate stage as if that's the main factor here, and just goes off on it. And I personally would hope that's a turnoff for a lot of your undecided people, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's almost a different discussion of like how could there be undecided voters considering everything we've seen over the last 5 years.
Yeah.
But I think there were a couple topics like race or law and order, whatever
Yeah.
that is, that
Yeah.
you could say like, oh, Trump should win that. I don't think he really ran away with anything. And there was COVID, which was just
Dude.
like a freaking softball for
Oh,
Biden, as it should
yeah.
be.
Yeah.
And I just don't know what Trump said other than like yelling at Chris Wallace.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I'm a Trump supporter, the way I would digest this debate is Trump, like, portray Trump as the victim. Well,
Yeah.
the moderator was against Trump. Biden just lied against Trump all the time. Every time Trump tried to get his words in, the moderator would interrupt him. I'd create this like facade narrative idea of like, well, Trump could have done better if he would have just been given the time, right? So but I don't care about the base of Trump. They're not going to vote anywhere else. I genuinely don't care about their vote because I know they're decided, just like I know a large portion of the Democrat. Like, there's nothing in this world that could convince me to vote for Trump at this point. Like, I'm
Yeah.
very decided in my vote, right? So likewise, the Republicans shouldn't be trying to convince people like me because it's just not going to happen. I've looked through enough issues at this point. I'm sold on it, and so I just don't like. I don't see how his answers on climate change, how his answers on race relations, which I really want to get back to, how his hits on law and order, I don't see how that would hit any type of nerve with an undecided voter at all. So I just see this as a general loss for Trump and a win by default for Joe, just because he showed up and didn't really mess up. That's kind of the way my first instincts are on it.
And so there's an argument to make that like Trump made this, he set the bar too low for Biden all these
Yeah.
months by saying he's Sleepy Joe, he has dementia, he can't talk. That all Biden had to do was just show up
Yeah.
and seem aware. There's your dog.
Yeah. He's
Um,
chilling.
that all Trump had to do, or all Biden had to do, was just show up and seem aware, which he
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
And so you're like, if Trump's saying all this for months and months, and then Biden shows up and he just looks normal,
Exactly. He has to rebrand now. He can't say Sleepy Joe. He has to rebrand, and
no.
that's a loss. I don't care who you are, what you are, but to have to rebrand this late in the process for someone like Trump who relies on his branding of the opponent, um, you can tell he doesn't really know how to attack Joe. Like, you can tell. It's very interesting to
Yeah.
see because it his attacks to me just didn't land tonight.
I, I think again, like he waited a little bit on it. He hit the Hunter Biden thing. And then once he waited maybe 30,
Yeah.
35 minutes, but after that, he didn't let it go. He hit the socialist, of course,
Yeah.
the radical left, the defund the police, all the Antifa. He stuck
Yeah.
onto this.
He tried to hit all of that. Yeah.
And it's like all these things. And Biden was like, well, Biden was just like, that's just not true.
Yeah.
And Chris Wallace, and then he was interrupting. Chris Wallace was like, don't interrupt. And like he couldn't get
Yeah.
the traction he wanted.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I feel like when he wasn't president against Hillary, it was like he kind of had a little more balls to the wall kind of thing because it's like
Yeah.
he has less of a track record. Whereas Biden's like, I mean, I'm sure Hillary Clinton is a better debater than Joe Biden, but Biden just was like, no. I
Yeah.
think his team did a really good job with him.
Yeah. I agree with all that. No, I think that's exactly right on. It just he never hit his traction or footing. And I think there's a combination of Hillary was a lot easier to attack than Joe is right now. But I also think there's an element of Trump's political instincts are very, very different than they were when he first started. I felt like
Mm-hmm.
when he first started, to be honest with you, the populist message he had, It was a great message. Strategically, it was a very good message he had from appealing to large groups of people, and he had very good political instincts. But this time, when he's trying to cast Joe as this like susceptible to the socialists, susceptible to the
Yeah.
radical left, I kind of see why he's trying to do it, but I just don't see that as being super convincing to, again, his base is going to go with him regardless. I mean, I know a lot of really, really good people that literally just go for whatever he says or the Fox News talking people, talking heads go say. So whatever they're going to say, they're going to go with. There's large groups of that type of people, right? But new voters, I don't see him having convinced anyone that Joe Biden is not for law and order or any of that stuff in any real sense. And I could be wrong, but I just don't see how that landed on a large scale. It seemed kind of like lame attacks. I don't know.
And and also like if you're, I mean, I'd say we're certainly more to the left than the center, but like
Sure.
there's no one on the right that's attacking Trump for not being conservative enough, but there's people
Yeah.
on the left attacking Biden for not being liberal enough.
Yes.
So it's like really hard to make that argument that Biden's like the socialist because he's obviously not.
Yeah,
And then
exactly.
Biden even said, like, he got it out early. He said, I am the Democratic Party,
Yeah, which
which,
was great.
I mean, yeah, I mean, whatever that's true or not, that's
Yeah,
nuance. But like,
exactly.
he's the platform, he's the
Yeah.
candidate. And that,
Oh,
I think
he's
that was a
right.
really good
Yeah.
line.
That's what I'm saying though. Is Joe Biden diffused a lot of the attacks. Like he said, "Oh, you're not for law and order." He's like, "I am absolutely for law and order.
Yeah.
I'm for increasing funding to the police. I just want them to have more equipment to do what they need to do." And he just diffused is like, and then when President Trump would try to go in at a different angle, like, "Oh, you're going to lose the left vote." I don't think Trump understands how much the left hates him. And so he thinks they're most susceptible to
Right.
not voting for Biden than they are. And he thinks he has an angle there. But honestly, he doesn't understand how much the left it genuinely does not like his administration or his leadership style. And so,
Yes.
as much as the left doesn't like Biden, there's very, very few people and I follow a lot of those leaders in terms of like on Twitter and social media, YouTube. I don't know of any one of those that are saying anything about not voting for Biden anymore. Originally, there were some talks like 6 months ago, but not anymore. It's kind of like, nah, we're all in with Biden. We need to defeat Trump and then we'll live to fight another day approach. So I just think Trump's instincts are way off with that. I don't know.
I don't think his instincts have changed from 2016 because then it was like there's two factors that aren't at play. Like number one, I think people hated well, yes, people hated Hillary more, but there was
Yeah,
more to say about her than there was Biden negatively.
for sure.
And even though Trump's always been the same, there was not a track record that there is now.
Yes,
There's
that's a very good point.
5 years of this evidence.
Yeah,
And so it's like Biden comes along and like we can argue about the nuances of his policy,
yeah,
but at the end of the day, it's like you get two choices and like
yeah,
one now we've had in our lives for half a decade.
yeah,
And the other one's like he's not Hillary and he's
yeah,
likable. So
yeah,
I think they talked about this at the end. It kind of got, again, as with every topic, they yelled over each other.
yeah.
But the integrity of the election still comes to mind, and it's like
Dude,
Trump
that was
said it, and
terrible.
I know,
That
but Trump said it, and he's kind of right about this when he says it could take days and weeks and months to decide. I think that's true.
Yeah, see, but he does what Trump normally does. He points out something that has some grain of truth to it, but it's because he's wanting to manipulate it for his benefit and create
Yes, that is
chaos.
true.
It's not because he cares about being factually accurate. He could care less. He's trying to say, well, we essentially, he is literally, and I realize this in the debate real time. He knows he's going to lose, and he's trying to have a plan B in place for when he loses to say, it's all delegitimate. Let's just leave the president in place as it is because we can't say that election has any integrity to it. So let me just finish out my term and then we'll, that type of approach. And I started to realize that because it seemed to me like he's not relying on trying to get new voters as much to win as he is trying to create chaos around the integrity of the election. And that's his main plan. And it will work. I'm telling you right now, your most rational people that are conservatives will buy into the narrative that this whole thing is rigged against Trump, and the Democrats have done it with little to no evidence. You will just see memes posted and that are circulated among these groups on Facebook. You will see these stories that are completely unverifiable, and then you'll see one or two that have some credibility to it but aren't resolved, and that will validate all the propaganda that they've shared before that. And it will work on large groups of people. And I honestly don't like Biden has to win the night of in a large landslide at this point. And I don't know if that'll happen, but to me, that has to be the outcome to avoid that.
So, yeah, well, I don't think that'll happen, but
Neither.
I think Trump's doing this again. I don't think he's stupid. He's doing this because he knows like it's not looking good for him. So he's trying to sow the doubt. He did this in 2016. He ended up pulling it out of his ass.
Yeah.
But he's trying to say, and again, like you said, like a grain of truth to it. Like it's these mail-in ballots. Like there's some things to consider there, right? But
it kind of depends. Yeah, a very, very small grain of truth. Yeah. But yeah, go ahead.
Like it's a lot. Like it's unprecedented. It might overwhelm the system. I don't think we have the best electoral system, but that whatever the point is, he knows like any neutral observer can say like on election night, we're probably not going to know.
Yeah.
And so Trump can take that and say, not only are we not going to know, but 3 weeks later, when we do know, that's rigged because all those ballots were falsified.
And then enters I mean, like, that's why I love that Chris Wallace ended on that. Like, are you going to have your supporters, are you going to tell them to hold on, to be patient, to wait for the results? And he starts drilling in on Trump, and you can tell Trump refuses to do that. Like, he wants that chaotic ending to like this election. He wants that because then it gives him opportunities to get his way. And I mean, one of the most depressing moments was that conversation of how he's like, in his mind, you can tell he doesn't care if he wins or loses. He doesn't care if he loses at all. That has nothing to do with it. He's going to act as if he won and push the envelope as much that way as he can. And I don't really know what happens at that point.
Yeah. And like the thing is, and again, it's all these things. Is Trump going to have another debate? What's he going to do? What's going to happen in these next 6 weeks? I know. And so when it gets to that point, I think nothing that's happened since we last spoke has changed my mind about what Trump's going to do, which is deny the election results or say he won or say it's rigged. I just don't think it's mathematically realistic, just based on the amount of Democrats or Biden voters, I should say, that are voting by mail, that he's winning in a landslide on election night. Now, if he is, then he's going to win like on unprecedented scale, which is possible. But I do like that Chris Wallace ended with it. Trump also said like he's telling his supporters to protect the polls. Dude, what the hell does that mean?
It's to create an intimidating presence to validate the conspiracy nut job type of person so that they can feel like they're serving. They will do it. And I promise you, they will go out there with ARs and their Second Amendment, like they're protecting the Second Amendment, or they're protecting from a tyrannical government. Mm-hmm. It gets really weird and people don't understand this, but it's like when you start appealing to those very, very fringe people of society and validating their conspiracies and giving them a platform, like to the Proud Boys, stand by is what he says, right? When you start doing that, it has consequences. It's not just, oh, Trump's being Trump. No, that is an intentional comment, which will have a very predictable outcome. And people are underestimating the fringe groups of conspiracy theorist people, and they will be validated by the large groups within the conservative circles that also think there's fraud, that also think that there's something going on that's fishy, and whereas they might not be as vocal about it or at the polls with their guns and stuff, they support the people that are because they view them as doing a patriotic duty. And it just becomes really, really messy in my mind because I don't want to be at the polls voting and there's a guy beside me with a gun asking me potential questions, acting like he's being some patriotic and making sure I'm doing something valid. Like, what the hell is that going to be about? So I when he said that, man, I was just like, oh my gosh, this is so bad.
I know it's not even the first time he said it, but now he's saying it like on this national stage with like maybe 120 million people watching.
Yeah.
You know, even think about that. If there's 120 million people watching and 1% of them are undecided, you're still talking over 1 million people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like there's those people trying to decide. There's the Trump base that's going to show up with their guns, whatever percent that is. And there's the Democrats. This might be a fatal flaw. We'll see. But they're like afraid of COVID. Again, rightfully so.
Yeah.
They're going to vote by mail.
Yeah.
And I just don't know. Like, I'm gonna go vote in person. And
I'm
again,
doing in
maybe it's different
person
for me.
too.
I'm a young health. We're both young, healthy people. Like,
Yeah.
it's the chances are lower, but it's just strange. Like, we know all the stuff that's saying about mail in
Yeah.
voting, whether it's true or not. It's the
Well,
perspective,
he's creating the system to fail though. He put in place the
which is
head of the
genius.
USPS, which is genius. He does, like, we as society, I don't think have developed enough words to explain what type of person Donald Trump is and how he handles things. Like, the phrase like self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, if you
Yes.
believe something enough, you're almost going to fulfill your own belief about something. So it looks like it's a prophecy that came true, but really it was your belief in that inevitable outcome in the first place that caused it to happen. So it's like a self confirming, a way of thinking about things. Trump take that to another level. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy that he rigs behind the scenes to happen, and then just goes, "Oh, what? Yeah, I told you this was going to happen." As he was stacking everything behind the scenes for that to happen in the first place, like with USPS and putting someone in head there and making sure they sabotage the internal systems from behind the scenes. Your average American's never going to read about those stories, and so in November, when the consequences take place, look what he gets to say. I mean, and it works perfectly. Unfortunately. It's depressing
Yeah,
how
I know.
unfortunate that is.
But it's like, eh, think about it like this. Like, he's been saying it for maybe 5, 6, 7 months since COVID went down because he saw the
Sure.
opportunity, sniffed it out. It's like, oh, the mail-in ballots are rigged. He's hammered on it ever since then. Now we're, you know, less than a month out, six
Yeah.
weeks out,
Yeah.
right? He's saying the same messages. He's saying it's on this debate stage with this huge audience. And Biden's like, oh, that's not true, which I don't know what else you say to that, but that's what he's
Yeah.
saying. And now it's like push is about to come to shove,
Yeah.
So I'm concerned about that.
Yeah.
I,
I
I,
agree.
I guess we're kind of getting off topic of the debate, but it's like this was a question
Well,
of
that
it.
was one of the comments they said though, and
Yeah,
it made us it confirmed the worst nightmares we had about, like, we talked about this in our last episode about what Trump may do in election, and this just confirmed like the worst
we know, right? I
ideas,
think we know what
So
he's going to do.
yeah, now we
It's going to
definitely
be a
know. There's no doubt.
surprise.
It's bad. I
There's
mean,
no,
even when he was asked to like denounce white supremacy, that whole like thing, I was just like, oh my gosh, like it should be so easy to be like, yes, I denounce white supremacy and the Proud Boys and all of this. They don't represent American values. And then just be done with it. But he like sarcastically and annoyingly answers the question, like, what are you talking about? Like, well,
and
what do you want me to
he's like,
denounce?
why
Yeah,
would you
like he's
ask me that?
annoyed by the question. And I'm like, just denounce it then. And then he doesn't denounce it. He doesn't denounce it. And then he says, they're like, well, what about the Proud Boy organization? He's like, well, yeah, stand down and stand by. That's a very different thing to say than denouncing it. And to me, I mean, this isn't a dog whistle at all. This is a straight up, like directive. This is a command. And I don't mean to sound so dramatic, but it's just I'm trying to portray the difference between it and a dog whistle. And it was just, man, the last like bit of that debate with the amount of things that came up, I was just like, wow, Trump is willing to drag this whole country down to hell with him just because of his narcissism and wanting to get his way. And it will probably work from the looks of it. It's the weirdest thing, man.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, that's a good point. I think it's fair to expect what's going to happen unless Biden cleans up in the in person and mail in, which again possible, not likely, but like Trump's going to drag us through the mud, and you're right, it's probably going to
yeah.
work because if you can sow doubt in 35-40% of the American public, that's a
Yeah.
significant portion. And
Yeah.
then what like I just don't know where you go after that.
You don't have a way. You can't have a new election because what's to say the same results won't
Yeah,
happen. And so you have this scenario in which I don't know if the Supreme Court steps in. I guess it would go to the Supreme Court, which
with
I'm
the
actually
with
fine
the
with,
five
believe.
conservatives and
Yeah,
three
but I
liberals.
don't view them as doing that type of voting, like among party lines. I'm not saying their interests aren't biased, but let me put it this way. If Yeah, I mean, I guess you never know, but in my mind, and maybe I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt too much, but you would have to have clear, like genuine cause for concern, genuine like issues that arise for them to have to deal with and maybe rule in Trump's favor. Whereas if they just see like, hey, this is clearly Biden who won, I don't think they're going to try to revert that outcome and look for manipulative ways to revert that. I don't see that as being the thing. I could be completely naive of this, but I like to think the people within the Supreme Court are less politicized and less partisan when it comes to these types of issues than maybe the rest of the country is. But again, I could be completely wrong on this front.
Well, even if they are,
Yeah.
think about how much time it takes to get to the Supreme Court.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Do you
That's
give
the
it a
other
month?
problem.
Do you give it a month? Do you give it 2 months? Do you give it 5 months, 4 years? Maybe just let them serve as 4 years. Like, I mean, what do you do?
But let's just even say it's a month.
Yeah.
The election is November 3rd. From November 3rd to December 3rd, we're going to go without knowing. Just seems insane.
Insane. Bonkers. That gives Trump so much time to pump the whole country with propaganda to
Yeah,
rebrand this whole thing. I mean, it's bad. I need Biden to win a landslide the election night, and I know that won't happen in my mind. So I'm like, wow, I have
possible.
to prepare for like serious levels of disruption and propaganda with the potential to be that Trump wins because of how much he's just rigged the conversation. I mean, that's crazy to me.
So there's no way he wins the popular vote.
Nah,
That's just not happening. I
no,
don't think.
nope.
So then you have to
Only
swing to
because
the
it's rigged, though. Only because it's rigged. There's a silent majority that thinks he is the most popular president in our whole entire country's history. I mean, he is the best person we've ever had to be grace this great country we call home. But he won't win the popular vote because it's rigged, not because he's not popular. I
I
just want to
know.
make
My
sure we
favorite
clarify that.
thing was when they were talking about race, and Chris Wallace was like, Mr. President, you say you've done more for African Americans than every president, perhaps,
For-
except for
yeah.
Lincoln. And Trump's like,
Yep. He's like, absolutely,
yeah,
obviously. That's a
yeah, maybe
no-brainer.
Lincoln. It's just crazy.
It
But
works though. His bravado alpha male manhood works. It works so effectively on people, man. It's crazy.
that's the thing is like you come back and like if you're objective, again, obviously there's policy things that I don't agree with Biden on.
Sure.
He is a career politician,
Yeah.
obviously
There's
way
a
more so than
lot.
Trump.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you get two choices.
Yep.
And there's just one person who's Donald Trump,
Yeah.
and there's one person who's not Donald Trump.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why
Very good way to put it.
Yeah, it's crazy that you could be undecided when you know who he is. But
I can understand people that are like, hey, I've made my mind up not to vote for either of them. I can get that. I really can.
Yeah.
I really do understand that. I was that person for a while, so I'm sympathetic to that. I don't get the people that are undecided and leaning Trump. And it's okay. Let me phrase that. I can get that if you're a single issue voter around the issue of abortion and pro-life, then I can still see where you're coming from. But apart from that, if you're trying to justify it from any other angle, I don't understand it at all. I mean, Trump is that bad to me that it's very the only way I can see you justifying it is if you're a single issue voter around something that relates to Trump, that there's just a big enough contrast that's what you're doing it, or if you've just digested a heavy level of echo chambers and propaganda from Fox News. That's the only two ways my mind can like understand why people would do that.
Well, I want to make one point.
Sure.
There's a significant amount of conservatives and maybe even liberals that care about abortion.
Yeah.
Because of, I guess, moral or religious or personal reasons.
Yeah.
I don't think Trump cares about abortion other than that it helps him politically.
Politically, for sure. Obviously.
So that's number one, but it does.
Yeah.
Look at his Supreme Court nomination.
Yeah.
Number two, I don't know how if you're undecided, I think you're just afraid to say you're voting for Trump. I
agree.
I don't have evidence that backs that up, but who the options are, and you're just afraid to say it out loud.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I'm not on the Trump train. I'm not like that.
Exactly.
But I don't want to vote for Biden. And
but why do they always say they don't want to vote for Biden? Because he's not all there. He seems like, all these. Well, that's just not the case. If you watched him in the debate tonight, I'm not saying he had a spring in his step and he was youthful, but he was plenty there. He was plenty there right now. And so to me, when you hear people say, well, I don't want to vote for Biden, like when it was Hillary, it was like Benghazi, emails, corruption going back to the 90s. I mean, you had a laundry list of stuff. But when it's Biden, it's like, well, he's just not always there. I'm like, that's just a cop out because you don't want to actually think through it in any serious way. That's what it feels like to me.
I agree. And at this point, like if I'm Biden or I'm in the Biden campaign, I'm not worried about losing the election. I feel pretty good about that. I'm worried about what happens when Trump won't accept it.
Exactly. And I
And
don't
that's
know.
the
I
thing.
don't have
Like,
any idea what happens at that point. I don't even know where you'd go to try to figure that out.
I know. And if I'm the Trump camp, or excuse me, if I'm the Biden campaign, like I'm like trying to just keep doing what I'm doing, not
Yeah.
make any big mistakes, and
Yep.
figure out what happens after November 3rd when Trump doesn't accept this and what their response is. That's what I'd spend the next 5 weeks on.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the only way you can approach it. And then you just kind of got to hope. And this is a big hope, but you got to hope the American people, the institutions uphold the outcome and don't get bamboozled or, bamboozled rather and misled. But, I don't even know what's going to happen. It's 2020. So to be honest with you, if we end in a civil war and then get nuked by Russia and China at the same time, and, every enemy we have on this planet attacks us on the same day, it's 2020. I mean, I guess that's an option. So I don't really know how this is going to end. It's crazy though.
Here's one more wrench. You need
Sure.
270 electoral votes to win.
Yeah.
What if they tie at 269 each?
I don't know how that would happen. I remember trying to look into that, and the way the states work, it's like, I don't know. I'd have to look into that again. But if that happened, I guess, I mean, in my mind, take Trump out of the equation, right? In my mind, the tie goes to the sitting president. That's what my mind would say.
Well,
Like
it's
you
supposed to go to
do.
it's supposed to go to Congress.
Ooh, like the Senate and the House.
So uh, I
That's
don't want to
interesting.
say. I think it's the House. I could be wrong. But the problem is what I don't know, because it's an election year, I don't know if it goes to the current House or the incoming House or the current
I was just
Senate
gonna
or
say, how do
the
you?
incoming Senate.
That's messy as hell, dude. That's messy. That's
So I
not
hope
good at
that,
all.
but doesn't that seem on brand for this year?
Yes. Yeah, that could be an outcome as well. Very much so.
If they tie, yeah, that's no good either.
Yeah.
I guess it's better than. But here's the thing: is like they're gonna get the electoral votes on election night to like midnight or 1 a.m. and then the reputable sources are going to be like, we can't call this.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what? And so it's like you wait a
Well,
few days and you're
I
like,
don't think we're gonna know till November, or December. Like, yeah, I think it's gonna be a while. I don't know. This is an area I don't know what's gonna happen. I'm gonna be that person that's sitting and waiting for news every day to figure out what the hell's going on. So I don't really know.
yeah,
Yeah. So, I mean, first debate to me, just to summarize, was a more of a win for Biden than it was for Trump, precisely because it felt to me like the annoyance factor was going to hurt Trump more than it will hurt Biden. And Biden didn't have any major issues in his debate performance that will hurt him. That's my original take on it, but we'll see what the polling and views say afterwards.
I agree with the second thing the most. Biden didn't do anything that would hurt him.
Yeah. Which
And
is
that
what
was
you
like
hope for.
critical.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else to really say about this. Do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Other than that, we're all the losers here for this
Yeah.
country. No,
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Oh gosh, man.
I know.
Cool. Well, tune in for our next episode. We will actually have a guest on. Pretty excited about this. Anthony will be introducing the guest primarily initially, and then we'll go over some hopefully interesting questions for people to listen to. We're very excited to actually be able to have someone on that's actually involved in the political realm and involved in the political world to kind of hear what their platform is and what they're running on, and just ask some interesting questions from some average guys that are just interested in politics. So hopefully you'll join us for that episode. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, Anthony, but I do hope people tune in for that.
No, people should tune in. It's a candidate here in North Carolina that's making some headlines, raising some money. So I'm
Yep.
pretty excited about it. I may or may not have a personal conflict with her, but that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. No, we're really excited about that. So definitely tune in. Thank you for watching this kind of different than usual episode. We'll try to comment on the vice presidential debate and the other two debates if they happen moving forward as well, just to kind of share our initial thoughts on it. But definitely any thoughts you guys have, just comment on the links below or the comment section below, and we'll interact with those comments. But definitely thank you for watching.
Yeah. If the debates happen.
If the debates happen. Which could not happen. I honestly feel like they won't, but you never know. So we'll see.
Yep. Welcome to America.
All right, man. See ya.